Today we are going to cover the chapter number 2 of history, class 6. Earlier we have already recorded chapter 1. So we have understood the progress and about the history and what, how and where the people have lived and different aspect of growing about the different wheat, barley and other plants and how the people in that period have been hunting animal and growing different type of vegetables or things which were available to them. Today we will understand on the trail of the earliest people. So let us look at the further developments in the history. The people who lived in the subcontinent as early as 2 million years ago, today we describe them as hunter-gatherers. So as the name indicates that hunter-gatherers, so people must have hunted animals and they must have gathered plants, fruit, and other seeds, stalks and eggs, which are whatever the things were available to them. So that is why they have been called as hunter and gatherers. Okay, so this is important to understand the history, what was happening and how it was happening. So as per the NCERT, there are at least 4 reasons why hunter-gatherers moved from place to place. There could be multiple reasons why hunter-gatherers or the people in that particular era must have been moved from here and there in quest of finding the animal and the plants. So let us understand what are the 4 reasons. First, if they had stayed, means the people whom we are referring as hunter and gatherers, if they have stayed at one place for a long time, they would have eaten up all the available plants and animal resources. So it is very much clear, if they would have been stayed at one place, it is very much possible that they must have consumed all the plants or the animals because in some seasons there may be excessive availability of animal or plants, but in some cases there could have been the scarcity in that particular time. Those people must have consumed all those available resources. Okay, and the second reason is the animal move from place to place either in search of smaller prey, or in the case of deer and wild cattle in search of grass and leaves. So we understand the herbivores in the search of grass, they must have moved from here and there. For an example, if any period or in the summer region, when there is heat and the grasses are completely eaten by the animals which are there in that particular region, then they must have moved into the other regions in the search of the grasses. So it is referring to that situation, that they might have moved into the search of prey or the grasses. And the third reason is that the plant and trees bear fruit in different seasons. So as we were referring earlier, that the different seasons played an important role for the people who were the hunter and gatherer. So they must have moved in different seasons. Probably in the winters they might have been moved in different part, or in the summers they must have moved to near to the river banks. So it is important to understand these different aspects of that life. Okay? And there was fourth reason: the people, plant and animal need water to survive. Water is found in lakes, stream and rivers. As we were referring that why they must have moved. So one important aspect, as we have already discussed, that water must have played an important role, because in summers it is very much possible that the streams must have been drained. So in the quest or in the they must have moved from places to places to look for the water, whether they could be able to find lake or any stream where they could just settle down, or according like animals and the plants availability also. In some cases it is very essential that they must have understood that the animal or the plants, they must have grown in that area where there is an availability of water. So this must have played an important role for their movement, right? So these are the 4 reasons. So let us understand how do we know about these people. So we understand that the archaeologists have different role to play, and they have found some of the things hunter gatherers made and used in that era or that period. They must have used tools or stone, wood, bone, or which stone tools have been survived to the best they must have found, or they must have been searched by the archaeologist, and they must have gone through the study. They have must have done the study, and they must have understood that what was the use of different tools, stone, and how they were preparing those uh, weapon or anything which could help them to survive, right? So that is how we are able to understand because of the archaeologists have provided us the important fact which they have gathered from time to time. Okay, so here in this image, if we will see, so in the yellow part which I have marked, so you will see A, B, C, D, E. So let us start from the last, which is E. So I have marked it as 1. So these are the natural pebbles which could be available at the near to the bank or any lake. So these are round shaped pebbles and naturally occur in the environment. And the second number which I have referred, and these were made about 10,000 years ago. So if you look at the look closely, so you will see that some work has been done on these stones. To they have carved in such a manner they so that they can use these stone as a weapon or as a tool basically. So they could they could hunt, or if they would want to use to remove any skin or cut to the bone or meat, so for that they must have used these stones. So these are about 10,000 years ago. Okay, so let us move ahead on the third image. So they were made later still, like, so these were the smaller if you look from the image. So let us understand these yellow part. So I have marked from E as 1, and according to that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 has been marked. So let us understand the E. So these are the natural pebbles which are available near to the banks of the river or the lake. Okay. Then let us move ahead on the D part. So these were made somewhere around 10,000 years ago. So as we can look at by the image that they have been made 10,000 years ago. Subsequently, there are the tools which have been made. If you refer image 2, 3, 4, and 5, then you will see that the size have been reduced because the people must have understood the utility, then how to make the tool useful out of the big pebbles or big stones. Okay, so they must have crafted, or they must have used in such a manner that they could be used as a tool or as a weapon. Okay. So look at the image D. So the stones have been uh, very smaller or tiny. So we can also call them microliths. So some of these stones tools were used to cut meat and bone, scrap bark from trees, and hide. Hide means the animal skin. Dead animals must have been used by them, and they must have removed their skin, and they must have used in the winter season to protect their body and to keep themselves warm. So that is how, or that is why they must have used the animal skin. And the stones must have also used for chop fruits and roots, and some may have been attached to the handle, as we were referring earlier, that they must have also been used as a weapon, handle or a bone or wood, okay, to make spear and arrow for hunting. Other tools were used to chop wood, which was used as a firewood. So sometimes they might have also chopped to the wood in case if they would want to use those uh, wood as a firewood, right? So they maybe have understood the use of charcoal or the use of wood, and how to use the fire, how to convert, how to use that wood into firewood, right? So wood was also used to make the huts and tools. So as we move ahead, we will understand that they have understood the importance of making houses and how they could use the wood for making houses and huts. So stone tools, like as it is referring, the stone tools may also have been used for digging and stitching of the clothes. If you refer to these two images which have been, if you look here, let me just, so what is, look at here. So here is the stitching part, and here the people have used to digging. So okay, so these are the things which they must have used in that time. So this was the use of the stone. So let us understand the places and other thing as well. So what is this referring, that the places marked with the red triangle, if you look closely, then the Bhimbetka, Hunsgi, Kurnool caves. So these are the three places which have been marked with the red triangle, from where the archaeologists have found the evidences of the hunter and gatherer. So we understand the Bhimbetka caves are very famous for the cave paintings, and the earliest cave paintings have been found in Bhimbetka. So this must have been the places for the hunter and gatherer. So it has already provided us with the location. And let me tell you that these locations which NCERT is referring becomes really important for the examination, because most of the time question have been directly asked from these areas, like which are all the locations from where the hunter gatherer or the in the earliest time the paintings have been found. So it is important to understand these locations, and you just simply can mark or note down on your register or anywhere you want, so you can recall them whenever there is a requirement. Okay, so this becomes an important fact, and as well as important thing for the preparation of our examination. Okay, so let us move ahead. So here is the Bhimbetka, Hinsky and Kurnool caves. As the stone tools were important, people tried to find places where good quality stone was easily available. Places where stone was found and where people made tools are known as factory sites. So we can simply understand that tool must, like stone must have played an important role, and once the hunter and gatherers understood the utility of tools, so they must have uh, used different method of utilizing them, like we have already seen in the earlier images in ABCDEF, that what they have done, that from the bigger to stones they have carved smaller or microliths as well. So according to the utility they have carved the stones. Okay, and the places where they used to carve, so those places used to known as the factory sites. Okay, so why factory sites? That some remaining remains of those chips or the waste must have been found by the archaeologists. So that is why it has been known as the factory sites. Okay. So in the yellow part, what I have done, that I have marked the important things. So Bhimbetka in present day Madhya Pradesh, so which is somewhere around 50 kilometers from Bhopal. Some sites known as the habitation sites are the places where people live. These include caves and rock shelters, and such as the one shown here. The people choose these natural caves because they provided shelter from rain, heat, wind. Natural caves and rock shelters have found in Vindhyas and the Deccan Plateau. These rock shelters are close to Narmada Valley. So as we have already understood that the water must have played an important role. So today also we see that the people try to live near to the where the water availability is good. In the past as well, the civilization survived on the banks of where on the banks of the different rivers. If we refer the Harappa civilization, then it flourished on the banks of Indus Valley, right? So similar, this is referring that these were near to the Narmada Valley, Okay, and it is also referring to the caves and the rock shelters, which we have already discussed, that why these must have been important, right? So it must have saved the people from rain and heat and other wind, or the any attack of the wild animals. So these must have been the reasons that they chose the caves or the rock shelters. Okay. So if you look at here, so these are the rock shelters, and there are the different caves as well. So the sites which we were referring are the places where the remaining of the things like tools, pots, building, etc. were have been found, are the known as the sites, and these were made, used or left behind by people. Like they must have lived there, and they must have used different things, and they must have left. Okay, so those have been called as sites. They may have been found on the surface of the earth, buried under the earth, or sometimes even under water. So there could be multiple possibilities according to which the artifacts have been found. Okay. So making of the stone tools. So there have been two methods which have been discussed. So it is important whenever we are discussing or we are making, we are understanding. So these two methods you must keep in your mind, that what all the methods have been prescribed or have been defined to make the tools. The first method is called as the stone on stone, and other is pressure flaking. So what happens in the stone on stone, that here the pebbles from the which the tool was to be made, some like there is a pebble, and out of that pebble another tool have to be made. So what they must have done, that they used to hold that pebble, out of which they would want to make the uh, tool. So they must have hold it, and another stone they must have used, okay, as a hammer, and the second stone was used to strike off the flags from the first till required shape was obtained. As we have earlier already seen the images, there was a crude shape stone was also there, and then the different shaped stones were also there. So they must have carved using this method, stone on stone. So using one stone as a hammer and another stone keeping or holding it in hand, so by hitting those stones they must have given the specific or desired shape, so they could use it, okay, for the different purposes, like skinning the animal, or for digging, or chopping of the meat. So these were the things. And the second method it is referring is the pressure flaking. Here the core was placed on the firm surface. The core was placed on the firm surface, like the surface must have been stronger. The hammer stone was used on the piece of bone, so it must have been tied the other, or like they must have used as a hammer, or bone, or any stone that was placed on the core, and to remove the flake that could have been shaped into tool. Here what they are doing, they are simply keeping the stone at their solid place, and then using the hammer by tidying any stone or any bone or anything which is available, then they are giving the shape to the stone. So these are the two methods: first stone on stone, and second is pressure flaking. So these are the two methods by which they must have shaped, or they must have carved the stones. Okay, so here it is referring about the finding about the fire. So Kurnool caves, it is referring to the Kurnool cave. So we will understand that where is it. Okay, so earlier with the images we have already seen, and where the hunter gatherers sites, or the location for the hunter gatherers. So here is the Kurnool caves, which we can see. Let me just, in case if you miss. So here is the Kurnool caves. Okay, so it must have used so here what is referring, that this place, here they have found the fire. Okay, traces of the ash have been found. This suggests that the people were familiar with the use of fire, as we were referring that they must have used it as a shelter home. So they must have used the fire, because by that time they must have understood that what is the use of fire, and how they can use it in different forms to scare animal or to cook food or to cook meat. So this could have been the utility of the fire in that time. A source of light, as we were referring, to roast meat and to scare away the animals. So these were the things. And now it is referring that the another factor which have played the important role, a changing environment. Around 12,000 years ago, there were major changes in the climate of the world. With the shift to relative warm conditions in many areas, this led to the development of grasslands. So as we understand that since environment got warm, if there was any ice, then it must have melted and must have created the grassland or developed the grassland, in turn led to the increase in the number of the deer, antelope, goat, sheep, cattle, animals that survived on the grass. So we have already understood that for the hunter and gatherers it was important to have the animals, and the animals which could be easily available in the grasslands. Okay, so now the environment has changed. There ample number of, or like a good availability of grasslands. So the deer or antelope must have survived, they must have multiplied. So they must have multiplied. So what would have happened, that there have been the uh, availability of good resources of the animal and the good amount of food to gatherer and hunters. Those who hunted these animals now followed them, learning about their food habits and their breeding seasons. So obviously they must have been followed them from the very beginning. So they must have understood their cycle. Okay, so it is likely that this helped the people to start thinking about the herding and rearing. Like rather than moving behind them, they must have understood that rather than we can just tame them and we keep them with their self, and they started herding and rearing these animals themselves so they could get the food supply uninterrupted. Okay. So fishing also became important. Several grain bearing grasses, because the environment was changing, so including wheat, barley, rice grew naturally in different part of the subcontinent. So they also understood that if they could get the sufficient food from these barley, rice, or the naturally grown grains, which is are getting available into the nearest grasslands possible. Okay, so they must have also started farming, right? So we have already understood that in what parts of the India or the world first grains or the wheat or barley have been shown or grown. Okay, so this may have led them to think about the growing plant on their own. So now it is referring to the name and the date of the time periods which we are referring. Okay, the earliest period was called as the Paleolithic. The first period of the history where the hunter gatherers survived was called as Paleolithic. Why? This comes from the Greek word paleo, meaning old, and the lithos, meaning stone. So sometimes there could be a question that what lithos meaning. So this could be asked in the PCS or the other examination, not in UPSC must, but could be asked in the other examinations. Okay, that what lithos or paleos mean. So the Paleolithic period extended from, so it is also referring to the time period. So keep this time period and remember this time period, or you can also note down, or you can pause the video and you can make the notes accordingly, because I have already highlighted the important fact or the lines which are important to read from the book. You do not need to mug up all the facts or all the other things which have been written here. Okay, so let us move ahead. So the Paleolithic period extended from 2 million years ago to about 12,000 years ago, divided into lower, middle, and upper Paleolithic. So we can understand that what lower, the very first period in the Paleolithic must have been the lower, then the time changes and we called it as the middle period, and then the upper part of the Paleolithic. After that the changes in the environment have occurred. So in that period not in the changes have occurred that period, but prior to that we call as the upper Paleolithic. So there are the three part of Paleolithic: lower Paleolithic, middle Paleolithic, and the upper Paleolithic period. Okay, so this long span of time covers 99% of human history. So this could be a possible question for the competition exam. So keep this in mind, which period contains the 99% of human history. Most of the human activity, most of the human development have been occurred in this particular period, and we call it as the, which is the period? Paleolithic. 99% of the human history have been occurred here. The period when we find the environmental changes become, and the beginning about the 12,000 years ago till for 10,000 years ago is called as the Mesolithic. So after Paleolithic, the period in which the changes has started occur, so that is called as the Mesolithic, and the time period is from 12,000 years to 10,000 years. Okay. Stone tools found during this period are generally tiny and are called microliths, because by that time people must have understood the utility of big tools or small tools. They must have, their minds have been developed. Okay, so rather than utilizing the big or heavy tools, they understood that if the smaller tools can be used, or smaller stones can do the same work, then why to use the big or heavy stones? Rather than they started using tiny or smaller stones, or smaller tools. Okay. Microliths probably stuck on the handle of the bone or the wood to make tools such as saw and sickles. At the same time, older varieties of tool continued to be used. So it was not like that once they have understood making smaller tools or the utility of smaller tools, they abandoned the big or heavy stones. They utilized that as well. And apart from that, these microliths also, they also started using them as well. Okay, from about 10,000 years ago, what we know as the is called as the Neolithic period. Okay, so we will understand it Neolithic in the chapter 3. Okay, so let us move ahead. So it is referring now the rock painting, which we have already shown the smaller glimpse, but let us understand. The best example are from the Madhya Pradesh, from the Bhimbetka. We have already seen that part as well, that the from Madhya Pradesh and the southern Uttar Pradesh, these paintings show the wild animals drawn with the great accuracy and skills. So who did what? It is likely that the both men and women may have done many of these things together. It is also possible that some tasks were done only by women and other only by men. So we cannot surely say that what work have been assigned to men or what work must have been assigned to women. So it is just a pure guess that what they must have differentiated work, or the hunting must have been done by the men, or the other things like cooking food, or other taking care of children and elderly people must have been done by the women. So it is just a pure guess. We cannot surely say what was happening in that period. So ostriches in India. So this could be this is an important fact for the examination purpose, that were ostriches available in that period in India. So yes, so ostriches were found in India during the Paleolithic period. So it is also defining the period in which the ostriches were available. The large quantities of ostrich egg shells were found at Patna in Maharashtra. So this place, keep this in mind, Patna in Maharashtra is an important site for the in terms of ostriches. Okay, designs were engraved on the some pieces, while the beads were also made out of them. So beads are like the small round shaped thing, so that is called as the bead. Okay. So Hunsgi, a number of early Paleolithic sites have been found here, where Hinsgi we have already seen it all on the map as well. So we referred the Kurnul caves, Hinsgi, and the Bhimbetka caves. So habitation cum factory sites have also been found at the Hunski. So we have already understood that what were the factory sites and what were the habitation sites. Habitation sites were where the people were living, and the factory site where the people were carving those stones and where they were making the different tools. Some of the sites were close to the springs, and the most tools were made from the limestone which were locally available. So what was happening elsewhere parallel to that period? Let us understand. In the France, the painting below, this is the painting. These are the bisons. Probably they must have drawn the bisons. Below is from a cave in France. This site was discovered by the school children more than 100 years ago. Painting like these were made somewhere around, the time period has been given between 20,000 to 10,000 years ago. So if we talk about the time period, so it must have been the upper Paleolithic to Mesolithic time period, which we have already discussed, because Mesolithic time period was between 12,000 to 10,000, and prior to 12,000 the upper Paleolithic period was going on. Okay. So many of these were the animals such as wild horses, aurochs, an older wild from the cattle, bison, woolly rhinoceros, reindeer, bear, painted in bright colors. These colors were made from the mineral like ochre or iron ore or charcoal. It is possible that these paintings were done on the ceremonial occasion, or perhaps they were made for the special rituals performed by hunters before they went in search of prey. So we cannot certainly say that why these paintings, rather here or in the Bhimbetka caves, which we will understand in the later phase, why these were made, we cannot certainly say, but these have been found. So they provide some sort of understanding that the people were aware about the how to utilize their creativity and how to use the colors. So this is it for this time. So we have understood the different time periods, the tools, and how the hunter and gatherers move, and what were the different factors. So we have understood in this chapter. So I would suggest you to revise this and make the notes out of these uh, chapters which we are covering. So I have already marked the important fact and factors, so you can note down, or you can just pause and revise these sections. Okay, so I will see you in the next chapter very soon. Well, thanks, have a great day.